Okay. So there's been one request, maybe more than one, to take the test that was scheduled for Monday and turn it to turn it to a Wednesday. Is anybody opposed to that? I said I'm trying to run a democracy. Is what I was trying. A fake democracy. You know, I was trying to run kind of like that fake news thing. You know, everything's fake. Hey, if it's fake news, they didn't watch The Matrix. You know. um, so what do y'all think? Anybody want to do it Monday instead? Wednesday. So we'll do it Wednesday. Well, why don't we discuss that on Monday? Because today's Wednesday, and I don't want to confuse the issue. So here, today's Wednesday, and we'll talk about. Do y'all want to talk about that test, or do y'all want to? You want to talk about it? What do y'all want to talk about? It's Wednesday. So it's that test. Okay, so we already did one. We didn't do one. I mean two. The first one was on 2. Second one's on 3. So if you look at 3, there's really not anything new on it. Let me see if I can get rid of some of this stuff. So I mean, okay. First of all, let me change a few things here. Ah, there we go. So first, okay, one of the things I'm not going to do is I just don't want to have to deal with the spring. So I'm not going to put a spring on it. However, I can't guarantee I won't put a cable on it. Hey, would this help? Wait a minute. There's so many switches in here. Let's see. What switch? Oh, yeah, that's right. This room does that. So, um, so we can. I'll probably have a cable in there. Cable's pretty simple. All it is, if it's hanging over a pulley, can you write on this thing? I think you can. If it goes over, no, you can't write on it. So never mind. If it goes over a pulley, uh-oh, I messed it up somehow. If it goes over a pulley, it's the same tension on both sides. So in this section, there's the same thing as before. There's a 2D type of problem, and then there's a 3D type of problem. 2D type problems are pretty simple. The only thing that's added here as opposed to the last is that some of the forces are all supposed to cancel out. You already knew that, so basically, or you kind of knew that from the way we were leading on. So basically, these are a typical type of problem. I like something like that because, I mean, all that is breaking a vector into components that go along each direction. So, those are simple type problems. Wherever the reading is, you can have a vector here, a vector here, and a vector there, whatever that weight is for you there. And then you get some of the forces in the Y and in the Z. That's all there is to it. I mean, the simplest type problems are, let me see if I can find one that has a vertical rope. Okay, so here's a vertical rope. If you just look at, okay, there you go. So if you just look at this thing, well, let's say this was given at 45 degrees, and say that was 100 pounds, or say it was whatever that is, 1962. So let's say that was 45 degrees. What would that magnitude be? In a matter of 5 seconds, you can answer that. So that, if this is 45 degrees, that distance is that divided by square root of 2. So you just square root of 2, add that to that. Immediately, if that's 45 degrees, what's that mean in math? That's the same thing that is, right? So, I mean, there are these problems that you can put on the page that you think, the first inclination is, let's get to work. And you start doing it, when in fact, if you just sit there for a minute and you look at a bunch of choices, you can say, well, crap, that takes you 5 seconds, and you're gone. So things like that might be good things to to look at and think about. I like that for that reason, because then what that does is it separates the people who have a concept that they can just look at it and go with it. Even if it was 60 degrees, you could go with that. For example, okay, so the theta, let's just say theta was 60. Or let's say theta was 30. Okay, if it's a 30, so flatten down to 30, what's that? That's slice that, right? And then, because if it's flattened down to 30, and this, so it looks like 30, this would be half, because if you do the sign, you're going to get half. So if you have a vector going down like that, half of that's that. Well, then, basically, you've got that being twice this one. And then you're going to do the cosine to get the other one. If it's leaning way down, it's going to have to be larger, so it's the y component offsets that. So if you had a problem like that, especially if it was 45 degrees, so don't be surprised if you see things like that on the page. That's a situation. I mean, you can go through all that. That's great. But he asked something different there. He wanted to know the theta. Here's another one that's horizontal. Horizontal and 30. I mean, you look at that and about, can you give me that number? Okay, so it's a weird looking number, but it's weird because of that. So it's weird looking. That means this thing, how much is PAC right off? If you look down, what you find out, it's kind of weird because I'm not scrolling this computer, I'm scrolling this one. So what is? So if you multiply that times 2, what do you get? Just that one. And why is it that? Because if this truly is 30, this distance is half of that distance. So therefore, this component is the same as that, so therefore that has to be twice that. Then when you're doing that, you basically, so someone could ask you, give you a problem like that, say what's PAC, would never ask you what that is. So, but then again, somebody could just be obnoxious to you and do something like that one, for example. Well, it's not responding very quickly. That one. I mean, so somebody could ask you that. That's not that hard either. It just requires you to enter the equation. So, I mean, those are fairly simple. Some of the forces in the y, you'll have to deal with that. And the sum of the forces x, you'll have 2 equations and a couple of unknowns. So all of those, now you could look at something like that. That might seem like it's a difficult one until you recognize somebody is monkeying with your brain, because actually if it's 40 times 9.81, pulling this way, or just pulling up like that. And then you want, all you want to know is this thing. Well, if you're pulling it up, 40 times 9.81. What is that? What's the math of that? You can answer that without putting a pen to it. 30 degrees. You go to the vector. Vector point from here back this way. It's going to be 40 times 9.81. And then what's this side? 20 times 9.81. So that means this is 20. Or you can work it out. If we want to work it out, here, just do it real quick. Realize that you didn't have to actually do it. Here, I'm lazy. So I'm going to say G is equal to 10, because I don't want to multiply times 9.21. Does it really matter what G is? So let's just make G equal 10. We're on the moon, or we're somewhere. This is why I don't have one. So, hey, let's just make G equal to 1. How about that? That's the easiest thing. Okay, so this became 40 whatever. And sort it 40 this way. So I got to break it into a component here, or this vector could be right over here, and a vector here. Okay, so if that is 40, and this is that, what's the sine of 30? Is that a half? So that automatically makes this vector 20, which makes this vector 20. So given a problem like that, it seems complicated. You just so happen to do this. Now, if we want to do it, and you're supposed to, okay, sum of the forces of the x equals 0, sum of the forces of the y equals 0. Equal to, okay, so then you have this component that is P, A, E. So you got that minus P, A, E plus 40 times, what did they say, sine of 30? And then you can solve for that. In the whole process, you realize you didn't need to die. If your only answer is what is that math here? So things like that. These are the type of things that put on the FE exam, by the way. Things that will require you to do a lot of extra work if you don't take a few seconds to look at it. They are harder. Okay, go away. Come on, there we go. Then there are things, okay, here's another one. You might think, oh, okay, no, that's not that one. It's that one. Now you could prove this. It says it's suspended from whatever these two things, A and C, and it wants to determine the force in the cable, in the cord, ABC. Do you think this is right in the middle? And if so, why? And the way to think about it is, what would happen if it wasn't in the middle? Let's suppose for a second it wasn't in the middle. Then you got a problem. Here's the supposing. We'll just add a page, go back. I'll snippet it, but I don't really need to. Let's say you had this thing. You reach over here, you drop it in. Now, your first inclination is, okay, I'm not supposed to know that it is not. So here, oh, that's wrong. That doesn't. Okay, so do it now. Yeah, it's on a pulley. So that would tell you that this force, or that tension, would have to be the same as this tension, right? So if I took an object, so you look at this and you think about this, this is that is the same as the tension here. Okay, now let me do something odd, and you can tell me whether this makes sense. Do something odd and say, this is the tension's equal to 2, and this tension's equal to 2. And that's pulling straight down with some force. But this is 30 degrees, and this is like 35 degrees. What's wrong with that picture? Let's sum the forces in the X and tell me what you think's wrong. 2 times cosine of 30 is equal to 2 times cosine of 35. So this angle has to be that in order for that to be the case. So the way that's the case is if this thing sat right in the middle, even though it looks like it's not in the middle. Yeah. So I think you maybe purposely did that. But when you did that, and you do this, you realize, oh, Jesus, that has to be right up at point 2. Then at that point, you got what, 0.15, and you got 0.2. So you actually, I mean, instead of having 30, you'll have the riser and the mean, you'll have a slope of whatever that is, which will be the same as that. And actually, I bet, okay, let's just do this first, because I bet you this is the case. If that is the case, slope of this thing, okay, 0.15 and 0.2, right? Okay. Let me think. Is that a 3, 4, 5? is it? So multiply something times 0.15, and that'd give me 3. Is that the same something I would multiply times 0.2 to get 4? So let's say x. From this one, this is easier for me. Well, actually, it shouldn't be, but x is equal to 4 divided by 0.2. What the heck is that? What is that? 20? No, 20. Is that the same thing as this? Is that 20 as well? So all of a sudden, he gave you a 3, 4, 5. So you look at it for a few seconds, you realize, oh, it's a 3, 4, 5. What did he tell us about this thing right here? Okay, I'm sure he said something. Okay, 5 kilogram block. Oh, geez, that's interesting that it's 5. Maybe it's not. 5 suspended to determine the force in the cord. Okay, so if it's 5 kilograms. So this thing going down here is 5 times 9.81. Now, if I look at the tension in the cord, and now I can erase this and put this. Okay, so this is 3 and a 4. Now I'll get rid of this. Now I don't know this is 2. I don't know this. So I got the tension in the cord, which is 5 times 9.81. You look at that thing. Well, this I've got. What I've got in this direction is what? 4/5 of T. What I got in this direction, if I've got it right, 3/5 of T. Is that right? And then I got another 3/5 of T here. And then I got another 4/5 of T here. So now I take these two, add together, and it's supposed to equal that. So sum of the forces in the y is equal to 0. What does that tell you? 6/5 of T is equal to 5 times 9.81. Now, when I started this, I thought maybe that some of these numbers would cancel out, but it doesn't look like they're going to. So it looks like I'm just going to get 5 times 5 times 9.81 over 6, which will give you a number, but I thought it might become an integer, but I don't think it is. I always have that impression when I start looking at this, because they've spent 40 years trying to get integers out of every single problem that exists in this book, which is why you pay an extra $220 for each. Isn't that what this book costs? Did anybody look in the bookstore? $2.30. Anybody do that? Oh, see, that doesn't count. Because all of us could have gotten it for free online. Yeah, did anybody get that? Who turned in their receipts? Now I'm starting to sound like an academic institution. I cannot reimburse you unless you. I went on a trip one time. Oh, I shouldn't say this. I'm being recorded. I'll tell you that after I cut the recording off. Okay, never mind. Back to the lecture. Okay, so I'll fill you in a minute. Remind me to fill you in when I get done. Okay, so you got the 2D type stuff. The 2D stuff could be pretty simple or pretty hard. I'm kind of more inclined to make the 2D stuff something that if you visually saw it, you could stop and think about it for a minute and get your way through it pretty quick. The problem with the 3D, okay, so here's all your 2D. Only thing he's doing is, okay, so you got a light fixture here. Up here you had a pot. He had a pipe. They're all the same problem. This is just a box. There's a purple box there. It's all looking about the same. Oh, this is a good one. Here's a light. And then there's a bucket. Now, whatever reason you would have, I mean, still the same problem exists. Difference in these, and I don't know if I'm going to do something like this. Let me think about this. You're going to have two free body diagrams. You're going to work off here, too. Okay. I'm not going to do the way he. So I would tell you that's a 100-pound bucket. Okay, so a 100-pound bucket, you find the tension here and here. And then you move that tension up to here, and you find the sum of the forces here. So you have one
ring, and you have another ring. So you have to do this one first in order to get the tension here, and then you do this other one. The same thing here. If you know the weight of the light fixture, which I guess if you're an artist, you might be interested in doing that. I don't know if see that reason, except to paint and ceiling, unless you just want to pay extra for the cases or something. But so obviously, okay, this thing is 100 pounds. It's 100 pounds going straight up, means that's 200 pounds in this thing. And then you got what? 200 pounds times 0.866 pulling on this table. You got 0.866 pulling this way on this table. Okay, you got interesting problems. You got 3, 4, 5, and 45, which are two different angles. It'd be nice if they were the same angle. But that one was probably easier, working on it feels quite easy. But you take that and you work your way 3D to find the pictures and relatively good enough. So even, okay, on this one, for example, even though you're going to be in this one, it might be a good idea to work to break some of the forces of the direction while off this ring. But then if you got a tension in here that was something you didn't expect, you give you an idea to run back this way. So even if you did it all out here, at least you have given a 30 degree or 45 degree, which they do exist a lot.
But okay, then I don't know. There's more and more buckets. There's more and more boxes. There's more and more. There's a ball. Here's a trash bin. I don't know. Okay, so the three-dimensional systems, it's kind of harder to perceive those. So these may be more grunt-like in the fact that you still have to go through them. Again, I don't like springs, so I won't do any springs. But if you go through them, like this is a good example here. He's got 3 rows, 3 cables attached to a box or a crate, whatever he wants to call it.
So again, if you think back about what we did, see, this is where this problem is just like the last section. Except, you take the length of that road from here to here, or is this deep? This is deep, so I'm sorry. From here to here, take the length of that road, then draw a vector, this vector, pointing from that point, which luckily he made the field and it points to here. So a vector that points to here, divided by n, the same brackets is uniform, pointing in the direction. And you want that plot becomes B, which I guess you don't know what B is. So it's stuck. There it is. When you do it again on C, except this time you go from here to here, you just so happen to look at it. What do you think the tension is going to be related to this? You think they're going to be the same? You think they're going to be different? The answer is, okay, so they're different here, the same here. So, and then FD is pretty easy. It's just really straight out the axis out this way. And then he puts his weight in and he sums the forces. Anybody had a gut reaction? When how does FD and FD relate to each other?
Anybody? Anybody?
If you think about it, they were pointing exactly the opposite. If you got something like that, that's one of those things. I don't know why that got highlighted. He put them together, and then what he did is he realized, well, this is a vector equation. So actually, I have an I and a J. Okay, so what he's done is this list, and then it continues over here. It continues to right. I don't think he could put them. I guess he could if he had moved this all the way across, but he lost the picture. So then together is that equation. So then what you do is you pop it here and pull out the I's. This one, that one, and that one. Then you pull out the J's, which is this one, that one. That's it. And this is where they equal off of these two. And then you pull out the K, which is this one, that one, and that's it. And then you work through it from this middle or this middle equation, you get that. And then you have to work out the rest of it. So you actually, you still had three equations, but one of them, actually more than one, but anyway, this one clobbered.
This one told you those two were the same. How about that? Didn't clobber it, but it. So sometimes you can look at the pictures like that and get a perception out of them. And then, you know, no springs, I'm not going to do that. I don't even feel like doing the angles. That's a waste of time. I like the ones that are more, I don't know. I think I may just stick to things like this one, the ones where the dimensions are. If you look at that one, you can find a vector. I mean, here, we can just look at it for a few seconds. I'll pull that snippet thing up. Wait, I pushed the new. Why did it not go? Oh. So here, I don't know if I can get it all, but apparently I can. So if you get it, you drop it, put yourself a new one out there. I mean, if you, what you're wanting to do, in this particular case, some of this is easy. So I'll call this, he calls it F, but I'll call it TAD, tension in the line between A and D. So if you look at it, I'm going to eventually have to sum all the forces. And so if I'm doing them in a vector sense, TAD, the vector there is, I don't know exactly the best way to do that, but it's the value of the tension times the I. And then this one's pretty easy. That one's straight down. So you've got another equation, which is, what did he say that was? 150 pounds. That's good. I can do that. 150 pounds, but it's pointing down and it's in the K. So that's this one. Now you got this other one. Now this one's not symmetric, but it is kind of weird. It's a 2 and a 3, and it's a 2 and a 3, and it's a 6. So already I'm having a feeling that there's something going on here in that he might be trying to get this to come out as an integer. So if you look at that, you're just drawing, you draw yourself a vector back that way. And for that matter, you draw it back that way. But if you want to draw a normal there, I'm just going to sort of wing it. I'm going to say, well, square root of, what's the distance there? Okay, well, you got a 6 squared, and you got a 3 squared, and you got a 2 squared. Well, what do? You go backwards 6. You're going backwards 6. Looks like I'm going out 3. This is for this one. Out 3. Make sure I do this right. And then up 2. Did I do that right? I did or didn't? Oh, I did. Okay. So I'll grab the normal off of this one. I don't know. I guess I should. There's normal 1, normal 2. Here you go. Turns out 6 squared. Okay. 36, 9, and 4. Well, that's interesting. Isn't that 7? So see, something's up. I could already tell you something's up with this guy. I mean, that's a good reason that he did this for 40 years and you paid that much money. So now that I know that's 7, I can guarantee you the other one's 7 as well. So here it's 7. Now let's see if I can get it. Okay, still go back along it. I go, which one do I want to do? I want to do the Y next. So I go backwards to along the J, still go up 3 along the K. So now all I do, now this is kind of, I'm going to cram it all together. And this is not very organized, but I got one force here. Yeah, one force here. I got a force here, which I'm going to call what is it? AB times N1, which that N1 sits right here. And over here, I'm going to have a TAC times N2. Does that make sense? Which is sitting right there. So I'm supposed to add this force, this force, this force, and that force all together. 4 cables, one of which I know the value of. 3 cables I don't. Which if you look at that thing, you're just, well, I could just list it. I'm going to list it vertically. So here's what I mean by listing it vertically. I'll do I, J, and K, and then we'll do something weird. Here's what I'm going to do. Let's see if this will work. Copy, and I'll paste it. Uh-oh. That wasn't what I wanted to do. Uh-oh, it's going to rain. Okay, watch this. Here we go. Magic. This is like magic. I got 4 cables, right? So I'll copy this thing 4 times. And then guess what it is? Oh, I didn't put a hat on the K. Shoot. Okay. Okay, so they're not going to be exactly the same. I was so proud of that for at least 5 seconds. So I'll grab the first one. Okay, the first one sits over here. TAC, and then I'll put a bracket around it. And what I end up with is minus 6/7, minus 2/7, and 3/7. And I'm getting those from right here. The second one, TAB, okay, minus 6/7, 3/7, and 2/7. The third one's pretty easy. It's 0, 0, minus 150. And then the fourth one is TAD and a 0 and a 0. Did I copy all that down right? The reason I did it that way is this. Now I can take the columns, and each one of these columns becomes part of the equation, because these are all the, you know, if you look at it, these are all the K's, these are all the J's, and these are all the I's. So I go in here and do that, and what I get is 3 equations which are associated with the oh, the pen is weird. Yeah. So I get TAC minus 6/7 for the I, and then I get minus 6/7 of TAB, and then I get TAD, and all that is equal to 0. So there's my one equation. And then your J, your second equation, I'll put the minus first. Let me put the minus first. Minus 2/7 that I'm getting from right here. Oh, yeah. TAC plus 3/7 AB, and that's it. Because that's a 0 and that's a 0. And then I get a K equation, which gives you this. TAC 3/7, 2/7, TAB, and then I get a minus 150 equals 0. So I end up with 3 equations. There's something interesting you should notice about these. If I look at them vertically, if I wrote them in a matrix equation, I don't know if you're the type person that likes to do that, but if I wrote them in a matrix equation, notice the structure of them. Okay, so minus 6/7, minus 2/7, 3/7, then minus 6/7, 3/7, and 2/7. And then 1 and 0 and 0, and that's going to be TAC, TAB, and TAD. And on the right side, now you're going to get, because of that, you're going to get 150. Now, if you look at the structure of that equation, there's something interesting about it. If I can, it may be kind of small on the screen, but the structure of the equation, it always ends up this way. If you look at the vertical part is associated with QC. Look at the values of these, compare it to, we were the QC. Compare it to this vector right here. Notice that this ends up in the top one, 2 7, and then 3 7. So this, in fact, is the normal vector. And this, in fact, is the normal vector. And that, in fact, is too. And it always ends up that way. So if you look at the structure of the matrix, if you get used to it and work these problems like 4 or 5 times, you can skip all this crap. And you can write the vectors straight up like that, bang, 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 and write them vertically, and then figure out that one. You got the one messed up, which is this one. This is kind of the same thing. If you work enough of these, you see that structure. It's a similar thing that happens to you in circuit 1 when you look at the resistive circuit. However, the difference here is you go to circuits 1 and you do that over and over and over and over, and you find out you've done that, for weeks and weeks. But in here, you do this and it's like a week and you're gone. You got to do other topics. So if you just gestated on this thing for 3 weeks, it would all be used to that. But does anybody use circuits? We all enjoy them. So in circuits, do they pull you whether you're in static and ask you whether you enjoy static? I shouldn't have done that. That's bad. Anyway. Oh gosh, you got to have fun. I'm not doing it at your expense. I'm doing it at my own expense. Okay. So you're stuck in this test doing something. I'm not necessarily